What happens when a celebrated Broadway star and Academy Award nominee sits down for what should be a routine late-night interview, only to find herself under attack from a host who seems determined to tear her down? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most uncomfortable moments in recent television history. When Cynthia Erivo appeared on Stephen Colbert's show, and what started as friendly banter quickly devolved into something much darker. The tension was palpable from the very first question, but nobody could have predicted just how far things would spiral out of control. This wasn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how a host can use their platform to systematically undermine a guest. And Cynthia's response was nothing short of explosive. If you want to see what really happened behind those studio lights, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about late-night television. The Late Show studio audience was buzzing with anticipation as Cynthia Erivo made her entrance, her signature shaved head catching the studio lights as she waved to the crowd. She looked radiant in a flowing emerald dress, every inch the star who had conquered both Broadway and Hollywood. Stephen Colbert rose from behind his desk with what appeared to be his usual welcoming smile. But those who knew him well might have detected something different in his eyes that night. "Ladies and gentlemen, the incredibly talented Cynthia Erivo," Colbert announced as the applause died down. Cynthia settled into the guest chair, crossing her legs gracefully and flashing that warm smile that had charmed audiences worldwide. "Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. I'm excited to be here." "Oh, we're excited to have you," Colbert replied, but there was an edge to his voice that seemed out of place. "You know, Cynthia, I have to ask, because our audience is curious. You've had quite the journey from London to Broadway to Hollywood. Tell me, do you ever feel like you're trying too hard to fit into these American entertainment spaces?" The question hung in the air like a poisoned dart. Cynthia's smile faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "I'm sorry. What do you mean by that exactly?" Colbert leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "Well, you have this very polished, very careful way of speaking. Very different from your natural accent. Some people might say you're putting on a bit of a performance, even when you're just being yourself." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful ribbing they were used to seeing on late-night television. This felt personal, calculated. Cynthia's posture straightened, her professional demeanor intact, but her eyes showing the first flickers of confusion and hurt. "Stephen, I think there might be some confusion here. I'm not putting on any kind of performance. This is who I am. I've lived and worked in different countries, and like many people, my speech patterns reflect that experience." Right. Colbert nodded, but his expression suggested he wasn't buying it. "But don't you think there's something a bit inauthentic about that? I mean, when you won your Tony Award, you sounded completely different than you do right now. Which Cynthia should we believe?" The camera caught Cynthia's hands gripping the arms of her chair slightly tighter. Her voice remained steady, but anyone watching closely could see the storm building behind her eyes. "I think what you're suggesting is both inappropriate and frankly offensive. Are you implying that I'm somehow being dishonest about my own identity?" "I'm not implying anything," Colbert shot back, his tone becoming more aggressive. "I'm asking direct questions that I think our viewers deserve answers to. You're a public figure, Cynthia. You put yourself out there, and part of that means being honest about who you really are." "I am being honest," Cynthia replied, her voice rising slightly. "What I'm not being is subjected to some kind of interrogation about my authenticity based on how I speak. This is incredibly unprofessional." Colbert laughed, but it was cold and mocking. "Unprofessional? This is a talk show, Cynthia. This is what we do here. We talk. We ask questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The audience was now visibly uncomfortable, some people looking around as if waiting for someone to intervene. Cynthia took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain her composure, but the damage was already being done. "Stephen, I've done hundreds of interviews throughout my career. I know how this works. What I'm not accustomed to is being attacked for simply existing as myself." "Attacked?" Colbert's eyebrow shot up in mock surprise. "That's a very strong word. I'm just trying to get to know the real you. Isn't that what good journalism is about?" "Good journalism involves respect and preparation," Cynthia fired back, her British accent becoming more pronounced as her emotions heightened. "What you're doing right now is neither respectful nor professional. You're trying to create some kind of controversy where none exists." The tension in the studio was now thick enough to cut with a knife. Colbert's producer could be seen in the wings, looking increasingly concerned, but the host showed no signs of backing down. If anything, he seemed energized by Cynthia's discomfort. "You know what I think, Cynthia?" Colbert leaned forward, his voice taking on an almost predatory quality. "I think you're so used to people treating you with kid gloves because of your success that you can't handle it when someone asks you real questions. Maybe that's the problem with today's celebrities. You all think you're above being challenged." Cynthia's composure finally began to crack visibly. Her voice shook slightly as she responded. "Challenged? Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like harassment." The word harassment seemed to ignite something even darker in Colbert's demeanor. His fake smile disappeared entirely, replaced by a sneer that revealed his true intentions. "Harassment? Really, Cynthia? That's what we're calling basic interview questions now." He turned to address the audience directly, as if inviting them to join in his attack. "Ladies and gentlemen, apparently asking a celebrity to be genuine is now considered harassment." A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd, but most of the audience sat in stunned silence. Cynthia's chest was rising and falling more rapidly now, her breathing becoming shallow as the full weight of what was happening began to sink in. This wasn't just a difficult interview. This was a deliberate attempt to humiliate her on national television. "You know what your problem is," Colbert continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "You've bought into your own hype. You think because you can sing a few notes and cry on command that you're somehow untouchable. But here's the thing about talent, Cynthia. It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you better than anyone else." Cynthia's hands were trembling now, but her voice found strength in her anger. "What is wrong with you? What kind of person does this? I came here to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, and you're sitting there trying to tear me down for no reason whatsoever." "No reason?" Colbert laughed harshly. "I'll give you a reason. You come into American entertainment spaces. You take roles that could go to American performers. And then you act like you're doing us all a favor. The entitlement is staggering." The xenophobic undertones of his attack hit the room like a physical blow. Several audience members could be seen shaking their heads in disgust, and the show's band leader looked visibly uncomfortable behind his keyboard. But Colbert was just getting started. "And another thing," he pressed on, "this whole wounded artist act you're putting on right now. It's very convenient, isn't it? The moment someone doesn't worship at the altar of Cynthia Erivo, suddenly you're the victim." That was the moment something snapped inside Cynthia. Years of maintaining perfect professionalism in the face of industry politics, subtle racism, and the constant pressure to be twice as good while receiving half the recognition came flooding to the surface. Her voice rose to a level that could be heard clearly throughout the studio. "Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea what you're doing right now? You are live on television in front of all these people attacking me personally for absolutely no reason. This isn't journalism. This isn't entertainment. This is cruelty." "Oh, here we go." Colbert rolled his eyes dramatically. The persecution complex in full effect. "Tell me, Cynthia, do you practice this routine at home, or does it just come naturally?" Cynthia stood up abruptly from her chair, her emerald dress flowing around her as she turned to face him directly. The camera operators scrambled to adjust their angles, clearly unprepared for this level of confrontation. "I am not going to sit here and let you abuse me for your entertainment. This is disgusting behavior from someone who's supposed to be a professional." "Sit down," Colbert commanded, his voice taking on an authoritarian tone that revealed his true character. "You don't get to dictate how this interview goes. This is my show, my studio, my rules." "Your rules?" Cynthia's voice cracked with emotion and disbelief. "Your rules include treating guests like garbage. Your rules include making people feel small and worthless for your own amusement. What kind of person are you?" The audience was now actively murmuring among themselves, many looking toward the exits as if they wanted to escape the toxic atmosphere that had taken over the studio. Some were pulling out their phones, clearly recording what they were witnessing. The show's security team could be seen moving closer to the stage area, though they seemed unsure of how to handle the unprecedented situation. "I'm the kind of person who doesn't coddle celebrities who think they're above criticism," Colbert shot back, rising from his own chair to match her stance. "You came on my show, which means you agreed to play by my rules. If you can't handle that, there's the door." Cynthia's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of rage rather than sadness. "You want to know what I can't handle? I can't handle the fact that you're using your platform to bully someone for no reason other than your own sadistic pleasure. I can't handle that there are people watching this right now who might think this behavior is acceptable." "A bully?" Colbert's voice reached a new level of mockery. Oh, that's rich coming from someone who's made a career out of playing the victim. Tell me, does it ever get exhausting being so perpetually offended by everything? The cruelty in his words was so naked, so deliberate that even some of his own staff members looked horrified. The show's director could be seen frantically gesturing from the control booth. But Colbert seemed oblivious to everything except his desire to destroy the person standing before him. Cynthia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup. But her voice found a new level of strength. You want to see what exhausting looks like? Try being a black woman in this industry. Try working twice as hard for half the recognition. Try dealing with people like you who think they can treat you however they want because they have a little bit of power. The mention of race seemed to trigger something even more sinister in Colbert's behavior. His face contorted with a mixture of anger and something that looked almost like satisfaction, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. "Oh, there it is," he said, his voice dripping with false triumph. "I was wondering when you'd play the race card. Right on schedule." The audacity of his response sent shock waves through the studio. Several audience members audibly gasped, and others began standing up from their seats, clearly wanting to leave, but unsure if they were allowed to do so during a live taping. The tension had reached a breaking point, and everyone in the room could feel it. Cynthia's entire body was shaking now, but not from fear or sadness. This was pure righteous fury. Play the race card. Are you serious right now? You've spent the last 15 minutes attacking my identity, questioning my authenticity, telling me I don't belong in American entertainment. And when I point out the obvious racial undertones of your behavior, that's playing a card. Everything's about race with people like you, Colbert sneered, completely abandoning any pretense of professionalism. You can't just be a bad guest having a bad interview. It has to be some grand conspiracy against your people. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The show's band had stopped playing entirely, and the cameramen were looking at each other with expressions of complete bewilderment. This was beyond anything they had ever witnessed in their careers. Several staff members could be seen whispering urgently into their headsets, presumably trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. Would you like me to make the next version cinematic narration style, like a dramatic script voiceover, while keeping dialogue the same? It would sound powerful for a video or documentary. Cynthia took a step closer to Colbert's desk, her voice rising to a level that commanded attention from every person in that studio. People like me. Did you just say people like me? Do you understand what you've just revealed about yourself? Do you have any comprehension of what you're doing right now? I'm doing my job, Colbert replied coldly. But his confidence was beginning to waver as he seemed to realize that his mask had slipped completely. I'm asking the questions that need to be asked. Your job. Cynthia laughed, but it was a sound filled with pain and disbelief rather than humor. Your job is to humiliate guests. Your job is to make racist comments on national television. Your job is to use your platform to spread hatred and division. Because if that's your job, Stephen, then you're doing it very well. The accusation of racism seemed to snap something in Colbert's brain. His face flushed red, and for a moment he looked genuinely panicked. I never said anything racist. Don't you dare put words in my mouth. I was talking about entitled celebrities, not about race. Entitled celebrities who take jobs away from Americans? Cynthia shot back, her voice cutting through his weak denial like a sword. Entitled celebrities who need to prove their authenticity. Entitled celebrities who are people like me. Your words, Stephen. Your exact words. The studio audience was now in complete chaos. Some people were trying to leave. Others were recording everything on their phones, and a few were actually booing Colbert openly. The show's producers were frantically trying to signal for a commercial break. But Colbert seemed completely oblivious to everything except his desire to continue his attack. You're twisting everything I said, he insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't handle legitimate criticism without making it about something it's not. Cynthia's response came with such force and clarity that it silenced the entire room. Legitimate criticism. You want to talk about legitimate criticism? Here's some for you, Stephen. You are a bully. You are a coward. You use your position of power to attack people who are supposed to be your guests. You hide behind the guise of entertainment to spread your own personal prejudices, and worst of all, you do it in front of an audience that trusts you to be better than this. The words hit their target with devastating accuracy. Colbert's face went through a series of expressions, from anger to confusion to what looked like the beginning of genuine shame. But instead of backing down or apologizing, he doubled down one final time. You know what? You're right. I am in a position of power here. This is my show, and I'll conduct it however I see fit. If you don't like it, you can leave anytime you want. That was the moment Cynthia Erivo made television history. She looked directly into the main camera, her makeup streaked with tears, but her posture straight and proud, and addressed the viewing audience directly. I want everyone watching this to see what just happened here. I want you to remember this moment. This is what happens when someone in power decides that cruelty is entertainment. This is what happens when prejudice gets dressed up as journalism. She then turned back to Colbert, her voice steady and final. You have revealed exactly who you are tonight, Stephen, and I hope you can live with that. With those words, she removed her microphone, placed it carefully on his desk, and walked off the set with her head held high. The studio erupted into chaos as she left, with some audience members applauding her exit, while others sat in stunned silence. Colbert remained frozen behind his desk, suddenly looking very small and very alone as the full weight of what he had done began to sink in. So there you have it, one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history. A moment that revealed the true character of both people involved when the cameras were rolling and there was nowhere to hide. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more stories like this, and comment below with your thoughts. What do you think was the most shocking moment of this entire confrontation?